These are 5 moments where Joe Rogan completely lost his cool on camera. Over 2,000 episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience, a Spotify deal reportedly worth up to $250 million, and 14.5 million followers on Spotify alone have turned Rogan into the biggest name in podcasting. Most of those conversations stay civil, even friendly, but a handful of them went somewhere nobody expected, and those are the ones people still talk about years later. Number 5, Joe Rogan versus Bryan Callen, the vaccine argument. Bryan Callen has been a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience more times than most people can count, and the two of them go way back as friends, comedians, and co-travelers in the podcast world. Which is exactly why this Fight Companion episode caught everyone off guard. The trouble started when Rogan drew a connection between autism and California's strict vaccine mandates, then brought up how Florida had stopped requiring people to get jabbed. Callen pushed back hard, calling the claim dangerous, and when Rogan floated the idea that people might not even need tetanus shots, Callen's response was a flattened bullshit. And that's when the tone shifted entirely. Rogan told him, "Bryan, this is a long conversation that we're not going to have on this podcast because I'm going to get angry. I've researched this for years, let's just not." Callen kept going. He reminded Rogan that he's not a scientist, which turned out to be exactly the wrong thing to say. Rogan fired back, "I don't have to be a scientist to know this, Bryan. Shut the fuck up. I don't have to be a scientist to read research." Rogan insisted he wasn't anti-vax, but the clip spread everywhere and resurfaced again in 2025 and 2026. What makes this moment feel bigger than just two friends arguing is everything that surrounded the podcast during that period. 270 doctors, scientists, and health professionals signed an open letter in January 2022 accusing the Joe Rogan Experience of spreading COVID-19 misinformation. That pressure led to Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulling their music from Spotify, and Spotify eventually removed around 70 old JRE episodes from the platform. Telling one of your best friends to shut the fuck up on the #1 podcast in the world is something listeners tend to remember for a long time. Number 4, Joe Rogan versus Eddie Bravo, the Flat Earth Meltdown. Eddie Bravo founded 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and he and Rogan have known each other through martial arts for decades. Bravo keeps showing up on JRE, and he keeps bringing conspiracy theories with him, but episode 948 on April 18, 2017 pushed Rogan past the line that nobody had really seen before. Brendan Schaub was also in the room when Bravo started arguing that NASA, the European Space Agency, and what he called globalists had all conspired to make people believe the Earth is round as a way to control the population. Nearly an hour of back and forth followed. Rogan pressed him directly, asking, "Why do you always go toward the conspiracy? Why do you never consider the possibility?" And Bravo cut him off with, "Too many lies. Too many lies." Rogan tried a different angle, telling him, "But Eddie, they're not the same people." And Bravo wouldn't move an inch. "It's all the same," he answered. Frustration crept into Rogan's voice when he asked, "So, everybody's lying?" Bravo didn't hesitate. "Yes, it's a global thing. They're all in on it." The core of Bravo's argument came down to a single quote. "You're on a ball. You're nowhere. Don't try to go anywhere. Just stay there and work." That wasn't the end of it either. Bravo moved on to claiming that nuclear weapons are fake and have never actually gone off, which is when Rogan told him he was wasting everyone's time. Even the show's producer, Jamie Vernon, raised his voice, and Jamie almost never does that. What separates this from a standard podcast disagreement is that Rogan rarely gets genuinely angry at close friends on the air. Pushback and debate are normal, but this felt different. The frustration was audible, and the clip became one of the most discussed JRE moments of 2017. Number 3, Joe Rogan versus Candace Owens. You don't know what you're talking about. Episode 1125 aired on May 31st, 2018, and the guest was Candace Owens, who at the time served as communication director for Turning Point USA, a conservative nonprofit. The conversation covered a lot of ground, but it hit a wall when climate change came up. Rogan asked her directly whether she believed in climate change. Owens answered, "No, I think the climate always changes, I guess. I think that was just a way to extract dollars from Americans." That answer visibly stunned Rogan, who responded, "You don't think we have to care about the environment? Not even a little bit?" Owens praised President Trump for withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord in June 2017, calling it great. And that's when Rogan pulled up a piece from Scientific American showing that over 87% of scientists recognize human activity as a major factor in global warming. Owens waved it off entirely, saying, "I don't trust that. If it was a .org, I would probably take that, but this is just a random website." What followed became one of the most quoted lines in JRE history. Rogan told her, "You don't have to have a formed opinion on everything. What you do have to have is the ability to know when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about." He pointed out that she carried a large audience and shouldn't dismiss an entire scientific consensus without understanding it first, telling her, "Don't say you don't believe, learn about it, and then have an opinion." Owens held her ground, but with a crack in the door. "Sorry, I don't believe in it," she told him. "Open to learning, always open to learning. I've been wrong before. I was a liberal 3 years ago." Here's what makes this one stand apart from the others on this list. Despite how heated the exchange got, the two of them reportedly laughed together right after and moved on to different topics in the same episode. On top of that, Rogan praised Owens in a November 2019 episode with Tim Dillon, saying, "The best one, in my opinion, is Candace Owens, because they bring her into these conversations and they underestimate her." The clip went viral when it aired and has been reshared across platforms multiple times over the years since. Number 2, Joe Rogan versus Steven Crowder. 40 minutes off the rails. If there's a single argument that defines JRE at its most chaotic, this is probably it. Episode 920 in 2017 featured Steven Crowder, the American-Canadian political commentator behind Louder with Crowder, and both men had been drinking throughout the taping. When the conversation turned to marijuana, things collapsed almost immediately. Rogan has advocated openly for marijuana for years, while Crowder remained skeptical of claims about its medicinal benefits. Crowder admitted that if he could take back one topic he'd discussed publicly, marijuana would be it, saying that people lie about it being medicine. Rogan countered that the pharmaceutical lobby had actively worked to keep marijuana illegal, and when Crowder tried to jump in, Rogan snapped, "Don't interrupt me, you 40 minutes of unbroken chaos followed from that point. Crowder accused Rogan of talking in paragraphs. Rogan shot back, "No, I don't talk in paragraphs, I make full points." A claim from Crowder that traffic fatalities had skyrocketed in states with legal marijuana prompted producer Jamie Vernon to pull up a Washington Post article on the spot to fact-check it. When Crowder pointed Rogan to his own website for statistics backing his case, Rogan's answer was blunt. "I don't care about your website, you fuckwit." Crowder called Rogan a bully, and Rogan responded with patronizing names like Cutie and Sweetie. At one point, mid-protest from Crowder, Rogan dropped a casual, "Hold on, fuckface." Near the end of the exchange, Crowder laid out his frustration. "The fact that you can't have a conversation about this as civilly as you do every other issue tells me that there's a problem." Rogan's response gave away more than he probably intended. "The problem is that I get very defensive when people start talking over me, and you started it first." What happened next was almost unheard of for Rogan. He posted a full public apology on Instagram, writing, "Well, this one went off the rails for a while." The apology acknowledged that they were quite a bit drunk and that he didn't handle the conversation really well. Rogan put it plainly, writing, "I take 100% responsibility for it going off the rails," and adding, "I do my best with these things, but I, like all of us, am flawed." None of it killed the relationship. Crowder returned for episode 1071, and the two moved forward. That 40-minute spiral remains one of the defining moments of the entire podcast. Number 1, Joe Rogan versus Carlos Mencia. The confrontation that changed comedy. This one predates the podcast entirely, taking place years before the Joe Rogan Experience even existed. And yet it stands, without question, as Rogan's most famous angry moment, the one that shaped everything he built afterward. February 10th, 2007, at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. Rogan stood on stage introducing another comedian and referred to Carlos Mencia as Mencia. Mencia came at him immediately, and what unfolded was a full on-stage argument in front of a live audience, with Rogan accusing Mencia of plagiarizing jokes from multiple comedians. None of this came out of thin air. 2 years earlier, in 2005, Rogan had published a blog post accusing Mencia of stealing material from Bobby Lee, Ari Schaffer, and George Lopez. After the 2007 confrontation, Rogan uploaded the video online, spliced together with side-by-side comparison clips of other comedians' routines placed directly against Mencia's versions. The video spread everywhere, and the fallout hit hard. The Comedy Store banned Rogan for years. Reflecting on it later during his podcast with Bob Saget, Rogan put it this way: "I was angry. I put all that time into that place and that Mencia thing. I thought we were doing the right thing. I thought that was a real problem." Mencia, whose real name is Ned Arnell Holness, watched his Comedy Central show Mind of Mencia get canceled in 2008. Comedian Ari Spears later claimed Rogan single-handedly destroyed his career. George Lopez accused Mencia of plagiarizing 13 minutes of his material in Mencia's HBO special, stating on The Howard Stern Show that the two of them had a physical altercation over it. By 2011, Mencia admitted he'd been in therapy because of the plagiarism accusations. In September 2019, Mencia maintained he did nothing wrong and said his team at the time told him not to respond, which he acknowledged made him look guilty. And then, full circle. In 2020, Rogan told Bob Saget on the podcast, "I don't have any hate for that dude, and I hope he's doing great, I really do." That confrontation at the Comedy Store cost Rogan his place at the club for years, but it also planted something in the public consciousness that followed him through everything he did next. The idea that Joe Rogan will say exactly what he thinks, regardless of what it costs him. That moment sits at the foundation of the entire Rogan brand. All 5 of these moments come from a man who has sat across from over 2,000 guests, built the #1 podcast on Spotify 4 years running, and signed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The episodes that keep circulating are not the smooth ones. They're the ones where the filter dropped, the voice got loud, and the conversation turned raw. Over 14 million people keep tuning in, and that might have everything to do with the fact that when Joe Rogan gets angry, nobody doubts that it's real.